Welcome to the RC Roundtable Podcast, where we discuss the latest RC hobby news, events, model reviews, and a whole lot more.
Well, hello there, Lee.
Well, hello there. More epoxy?
Oh, what's your clever screen?
There's no clever. It just says Lee. I want to be myself today. How unique.
I thought you've learned not to be yourself. If we've learned nothing else, and
I have to embrace the Lee now. So from now on, it's going to be Lee. Just Lee. Deal with it.
All right. We'll see. But we're here for another RC Rescue episode, number 2.
Dos.
And for those who are disappointed by the nautical theme of the first one, hopefully they'll appreciate that this is an airplane.
Very good.
Yeah. So are you dying to see what we're going to fix up?
For those listening or watching, I have no idea. Terry called me up and said, "Hey, can you join me real quick for something?" And I said, okay. And now I'm here. So let's all together find out what Terry is going to share with us.
And, you bring up an interesting point because you just said, for those listening, I think on these, it's only video, right? So they have to be watching.
There's no podcast?
We haven't.
Did I just ruin it?
No, I don't think so. But okay, anyway, so let's move on to the project this time around. Here it comes, or at least part of it.
It's another boat. You lied to us. Okay. It's okay. It's a big fat purple plane. At least it looks purple here. Is it blue or purple?
Are you fuselage shaming? You called it big fat.
It looks porky.
It's a Buzzard Bombshell.
But what is it? Is it blue or purple?
It's purple.
It is purple. Okay.
Very purple, yes.
Okay, yeah. All right.
So, a very well-known old-timer model, the Buzzard Bombshell. Before I get too far, I've got the wing behind me. Let me grab that real quick. I'm kind of leashed with my headphone cable here.
That is a very interesting canopy.
We're going to talk about that.
But there's more, okay.
Yeah. All right, one sec.
Oh, he's walking away. This is all live, folks. We're just recording this. Oh, here's the wing. Buzzard Bombshell. Look, we don't have enough camera wide angle to show this enormous wing. What's the wingspan? Is that polyhedral? Can you not hear me? Oh, he couldn't hear me, folks.
Nothing you said.
He heard absolutely. Here I am talking the whole time. This is how we run, folks. Okay, so the first question was, what's the wingspan, and is that polyhedral?
About 6 feet. I'd have to measure it, but I think the per plan's wingspan is 6 feet, 72 inches. And yes, polyhedral, also per the plans. This was originally a free flight old timer design. And then there have been several adaptations to 3-channel RC. So rudder, elevator, throttle. Was that all the questions I missed?
For now, yes.
Okay. So let's go over this example here. There have been a few kits and, as I mentioned, plans throughout the decades. I don't know if this was built from a kit or plans. My guess from looking at things would be that it was plans, but it's very nicely built. It's been around for a little while. I believe it was originally flown with a 40 size glow engine, just kind of peeking at the nose here. You've got a hole for a needle valve to come through and a normal beam mount for an engine up here. It was given to me recently by a friend of mine in the Madison, Wisconsin area. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. And Dave, I don't believe, was the original owner, and he flew it as an electric airplane. And he was flying it with a E-Flight Power 15 Outrunner motor. I've got an example of one here. Bada bing. And so Dave had created kind of a motor box like this, had some weight on it too, but that went to the original, in front of the original firewall, and gave the proper spacing for that Power 15. Now, obviously, I have a Power 15 as well, but I'm going to use something a little bit different, or at least attempt to, when I power mine. And of course, it's going to be electric as well. So we can go through all those things. It needs the power system. It does have 2 standard servos already in it. I assume they work fine still, but I'll test those. But if they do work fine, then the control system is good to go. I just need to throw in a receiver. So it'll just be a matter of installing the motor, finding a way to attach the battery, And then there's a handful of minor cosmetic issues that I want to address as well. But that's kind of it. It's not a basket case by any stretch. It's a nice model as I received it. Just needs a little bit of spit and polish, and it'll be good to go. So, any questions before I dig in any
Still
further?
staring at that canopy, but okay. Sorry.
All right.
It's just very distracting to me. And I'm looking at
Okay.
the nose hook. Well, it looked to be an inverted engine. Is that correct? Because I'm looking at the fact that the needle valves on the right side aren't they normally on the other side? So that
Aren't you clever? So I didn't consider that, but you're probably right. I bet it was mounted inverted. I would assume you could mount it either way, but yeah, based on that, I would say it probably was an inverted engine.
so I guess the question, if that's the case, how was the muffler? Where was the muffler on that thing?
Muffler.
If you had it was a glow engine before. So how did the
Yeah.
go to the other side of the fuselage? I'm just, these are the
Yeah,
questions I ask.
There's no obvious cutout for a muffler.
Interesting. Okay. Just
So
I
maybe
figured it
was
would be
a-
on the other side, unless he patched it. I don't know. Just because
maybe,
again, you're doing a restoration. I mean, you're going from glow, you went to electric, and now you've got this. You're going to put an alternator, right?
well, I'm doing an electric to electric conversion. But
I'm assuming-
yeah, I mean, the thing's been around for a while, treated well, but yeah, you don't really know the full history of it. And maybe Dave, the previous owner, did cover over where muffler cutout had been, but if he didn't cover up where the needle.
That's
valve
true.
came
And
through.
I only bring this up, Terry, because in our conversations with other people and people getting into the hobby, I know this may not even be the topic you're going to discuss, but this is a conversion process. So I'm just, figuring if you grab an old glow and you want to make it electric, there are some things that you'd probably want to do, which is cover up the holes and then find out how they in fact mounted it. And you brought up another good point with that mounting block is that it had weight already attached to it. So
Right. So that's probably a good thing to start out here. This being an old timer model, it does have a lifting tail. I don't know if you can tell here, but it's a positive airfoil. So and some nice graphics on the rotor there. I like my Buzzard. The effect of the lifting tail is that the CG can be further back than you would normally expect. Most horizontal stabilizers actually push down to create all the balance of forces to make an airplane fly. With the lifting tail, it's lifting up. And so the CG is at the second former. And the previous owner has nicely marked that for me. So it's pretty far back. I don't know percentage-wise what it is.
But you know what? Turn it back to the camera, because I think I'm going to address this. When we talk, people have asked, I mean, again, I feel like I'm going down not the direction the show was supposed to go for your rebuild. But looking at the fuselage, at least the root area, most people ask, like, where's the CG on a wing? And most of us say, like, the front third, right? You go back a third.
30% of mean aerodynamic chord.
I mean, and looking
Generally
at that,
speaking.
it looks close. It looks like it's a little further back, but yeah, where he's got the red line, you can kind of see that where it might fit on the wing.
Yeah, it's further back than 30. I haven't done the math to see what it really is, but yeah, that's where it's going to be. That's my goal here. And the good thing is you can download plans from lots of those plan repositories that are on the web. But you have to be careful because there are a few different variations of this design out there. I assume if they have the same basic outline, the CGs should be about the same on all of them. But the fact that they marked the CG here was a step in the right direction for me. So that's one less mystery to solve. Now, the canopy. You're talking about the canopy. And let's get a closer look for those who haven't seen it yet. It's obviously not stock. I'm guessing this was a scrap piece cut from a 2-liter bottle or something like that. It's got some curvature that isn't necessarily flattering. But speaking of plans being downloadable, most plans show a template for cutting a canopy shape. And so I've already done that. I found a set of plans online that seemed to be right. And
wow, I say it here and it comes out there.
It's funny how we think the same way. So I was able to print out that template part, which I assume is 1-to-1 size, and put it on here, and it's already a pretty close match. The wing posts here are not quite stock, so I have to accommodate those. But I've got this kind of dry fit in place, and it's a much more stock-looking windscreen for a Buzzard Bombshell. And so I've got some clear plastic that I've used for other windscreens. I'm going to use this template. Once I've got the paper form here, I'll use this to get it the way I want. And once it's finalized, I'll cut out a piece of plastic, put it in place, and bada bing. No more complaints from Lee about the windscreen. You're smiling, but you're not laughing. So.
I'm entertained.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to bring up, since we're talking here, this is not my first Buzzard Bombshell. When I lived in Houston, I was also given one by a club member at the JSC club there. And it had also been a previous nitro or glow-powered airplane. I converted that one to electric. And this was in pre-brushless days. And what I used to power it was, do you remember the endoplasma motor that was kind of big for a while?
Yeah, the can.
Yeah, Kyosho endoplasma.
Were these the ones that were very highly colored? Like they had some really beautiful graphics on the outside of the can?
Yeah, the stickers, yeah.
Okay.
But I think it was Gary Wright that made him kind of famous because that was his recommended motor setup in the E3D model that he was producing.
So geared though, right?
Geared. You take that. It was a pretty cheap motor. I think the motor was about $20, and you put a 10-tooth pinion on it, and then you pair it with Great Plains gearbox, which was also cheap, and then you run a 10-cell NICAD on it, and you could turn a big prop and have pretty good power. And so with that E3D model, that was a cheap brush setup where you could hover a 48-inch span airplane. One of the alternative applications of that was the same motor with the same gear ratio, run it on 6-cell NICAD, and you could turn a big prop, a 15 by 6-inch prop. And so that's what I did on that other Buzzard Bombshell. I used endoplasma with the gearbox, 15-inch prop, but rather than 6 cells, I used the the subsea size NICADs, 2 6-cell packs, because I needed that much weight in the front to get the CG. So it was basically 2 6 cells in parallel shoved up under the nose. And the darn thing flew pretty well. I don't know what the wing loading was or any of that stuff or the power loading, but the thing took off and just went. And I had fun with it. It was a good, cheap airplane. I assume I gave it away when I moved out of Houston. I don't know whatever happened to it, but I think I still have that endoplasma motor on the shelf over there somewhere. But for this one, I'm going to try to go in a different direction, but only slightly so. So instead of this Power 15 Outrunner, what I want to try to do is use this. This is a Hymax 3630 1500 kV in-runner motor, and then it is attached to a Model AirTech belt drive. And this motor system is not a heck of a lot newer than that endoplasma system I talked about, maybe 5 years or so. So I've had this thing for a long time. I bought this setup, I don't know, 12 years ago. And I don't think I had a specific purpose in mind for it when I got it, but I've been waiting since then for a good airplane to put it in, and I think this is finally the one. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I've always wanted to use a belt drive just because it's unique, and I think it's probably going to sound cool. We'll see what happens. So the trick here is going to be mounting it on a standard firewall. But sounds like you were about to ask me a question.
Exactly that. How does it mount?
Well, ideally, the way you would do it is you would have either a nylon glow mount attached to that firewall, or if you had wood beams that would attach to.
Can you show the mount to the camera, or show the gearbox?
Well, oh yeah. One sec. So I think the standard way you would mount this gearbox is it's got some holes up here, and you would run
standoffs
or long bolts or something to a firewall here. I may end up doing that. That might be the simplest thing. What I'm contemplating now is making some hardwood beams that would go along the side of the mount here up to the firewall. So one on each side. I've got this hardwood stock. And then using a clamshell mount around the motor. I think I've got that here. Bear with me. So you've got a standard clamshell mount like this. that would mount on the beams, and then there's a top part that clamps the other side of the motor.
Okay.
Yeah, like that. And so then it's a friction fit in there. I'm going to maybe try that. I'm going to examine both options with the standoffs and then the clamshell. The only reservation I have with the clamshell mount is that with a big prop like that, you get a lot of torque, and it's possible to twist the motor in the mount. We'll see what happens. But I think that's the one I prefer, only because I have some fancy, are they around here? I have some fancy clamshell mounts that are also heat sinks. I just think they look cool. So we'll see which one I end up with.
Any chance you can add an additional, if you go with the clamshell mount, that you could add another like cross beam to connect the gearbox to the fuselage? Just as a secondary
just to
support?
keep it from rotating?
Because it looks like you could use one of the holes or the two holes on the side and maybe just do a pass-through to run
That's not a
something
horrible
across.
idea. Yeah. So yeah, maybe some sort of hybrid of those two thoughts then.
And only to support, not to be a firm structural support, but at least to keep it from vibrating. So something that just keeps it from rattling.
Yeah, and it would keep it from rotating in that mount as well.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Yep, not a horrible idea. So as with most of these things that I do, there's usually not a clear plan up front. I figure it out as I go. That'll be the case here. And if I do end up using the secondary stabilizer, I will call it the Lee beam. Give you full credit for that. And we will patent that and make our millions.
Can you make that the Sir Lee beam?
Sir Lee
Really?
beams. And a few other things here. The wing is held on with rubber bands, and it's a pretty good stretch for number 64 bands, but we'll make it work. And this front rubber band post is not stock. At least I didn't see it on any of the plans that I looked up. I'm not sure it's necessary. And it does kind of get in the way of the canopy, so that may or may not be here the next time you see this airplane. I'll have to figure it out. But as I mentioned, the previous owner, Dave, he had flown it as electric, so there's already some provision for mounting a battery. And I was surprised by how far back that is. If you open this up, it looks like he was using a 3-cell 3200 in through this bottom hatch and then towards the nose. And there's also a hatch on the front. Maybe that's so you could manipulate the plugs in there. But the actual battery tray is right here.
That still seems pretty forward.
It's kind of, if you look, it's under that front part of the wing, so it's not contributing much to the forward balance.
Oh, well.
And maybe you do or don't need it. I'm not sure, but those are the things you figure out. What's the difference in weight between the motor I'm going to use and what he's going to use, and the prop and all that. So lots of things that you can't really predict. You just have to figure it out on the fly, and that's what I'm going to do. And if I do have to move the battery forward, it looks like there's some volume in there to do that. The servos might be in the way, but I'll figure it out. And if I have to, I'll add some lead in the nose. Although I feel dirty just saying that.
Just bigger battery.
Yeah, if I have to. So that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. There is one more thing. The wheels on here. It's got some nice vintage-looking wheels.
Very forward.
Well, yeah, as is common for the old free flight planes because they were coming down a little bit nose first. But I believe these are Williams Brothers wheels, and they're in good shape. I think they look nice on here. However, I believe I have a set of new in-box Trexler balloon wheels that would fit this, and I think they'd really look the part.
More vintage.
More kind of in the style that this would have been. So I'm going to see if I can find those, and if that's the case, I'll put those on here. But otherwise, I'm still happy to keep these Williams Brothers wheels. The only concern I have is that the hole in the wheel is considerably bigger than the diameter of this wire. So when you try to roll it, it wobbles and shakes and makes a lot of noise. So if I end up using these, I'll put some sort of axle shim in there to get that inner diameter closer to what it should be. And also the axle's much wider than the actual wheel. So if these are going to be the permanent wheels, I'll move these guys in and then cut the axle off. but all very minor stuff. That should be it. I think the rest of it, I've got a few patches to make and covering. I'm trying to decide, because the canopy is clear, do I make these windows clear as well? Or do I make the canopy white? I think the white windows look kind of good. I don't know. Oh, am I boring you, Lee? Is this too, no?
Sorry, I was just filled with tears and joy and how you're, no,
is?
I'm sorry. I just rubbed my eyes. Just calm your butt down, dude.
I can hear you. What is this guy doing?
No, I think I was going to disagree with the clear side windows. I would leave them white. Yes.
So you would have a clear windscreen and white windows like this?
You can if you want. But I'm also saying I think white windshield. I just would not make clear side windows.
All right. So yeah, maybe I do make a white windscreen. I don't know.
Make two.
There you go. And then we can have a vote. And the watchers can decide which one to go with.
I mean, how hard will it? You've got the template. You can make 4 or 5 different colors, and we can have a poll and vote for it.
Yeah, maybe.
Or do one with a photo on the back, and
a photo
Terry,
of you.
Terry in the screen like this.
I'll have Lee in there like this.
Let's do that. You be the pilot side. I'll be like this on the passenger side.
Yeah. All right. I think that sums up all the things that need to be done to this guy. The tail feathers are square and held solidly. Everything seems to be in order, other than this power system and the little cosmetic things we talked about. I don't even think I'm going to have to touch the wing, other than a little monocoat patch. So yeah, the wing is ready to go.
No thoughts on adding ailerons to that sucker? Just leave it as is?
Yeah, I have thoughts. I'm not going to add ailerons to it.
Okay.
Polyhedral, no.
Well, it's true, but I will say on my Champ, because that kind of reminds me of my Aranka Champ, my Midwest live wire Champ.
Oh yeah,
the way the fuselage, the lifting tail, stuff like that. I just so one thing I wish my Champ had were ailerons, and so I might either try to find a kit and build a second wing with ailerons, because that's just it kind of snaps. I don't know. You haven't flown that one, right? You just someone gave it to you.
Right. I got it a couple of weeks ago.
So, but you're right. It's such a big plane with polyhedral, it's probably just going to be gentle giant.
And from what I recall, with the previous Buzzard Bombshell that I had, it's very responsive to rudder input, again, because of the polyhedral wing. So yeah, I don't see ailerons being a benefit here.
Or spoilerons.
My turn.
All right. So. Anything else?
I don't think so. So yeah, let's wrap this part up. This is the pre-look at this. I'm going to go off and do some work. I'll document what I'm doing, so I don't forget how I did it. And then we'll come back in a day, a week, a month, however long it takes me to get this. And hopefully I'll have flown it by then too. And we'll talk about what I actually did, how it actually turned out, how it actually flies. And yeah, I think that'll be the true ending.
The before and after, like it.
All right. Well, Lee, it's been 2 days, maybe 3 days since we last recorded this about the Buzzard Bombshell.
And I know nothing. I'm totally clueless.
Well, that's why we're here, so I can update you, because there have been big changes. Big. So
huge.
To find out. Huge. So I did most of the things that we talked about the other day.
Did you plug the hole?
You know what? I did. That was the last thing I did.
Yay! I feel vindicated.
Yeah.
Right, so and it matches.
Yeah. So I'll go over that in a minute. The big deal.
Look at that.
Look
at that. I know. But I was like, yeah, okay. Can you get a little closer to the center of your camera?
Yes. Okay. So that's other obvious things. Is that better?
No, a little higher. Cover your face. Bring it right up to right in the middle of the camera. I was looking at the motor.
Oh, I thought you wanted to. Okay. So
no. Yeah, there we go. I just wanted to see all that.
The Model AirTech belt drive. And so we talked the other day that I wasn't sure how I was going to mount this thing. And I went through a few iterations. The first thing I did is I went to the hardware store. I bought some long 632 bolts, because the holes on the bulkhead here fit a 632. You can tap those for a 632 easily. So I'm thinking I'll just use some standoffs. Oh, I put those away. But I had some 2-inch standoffs, and I'll do that, and that'll be easy, right? Well, ended up that it wasn't going to be easy because I'm working with limited space on here already. If the firewall had already been tilted with 3 degrees of right thrust and maybe some down thrust, and I could just put the screws or the bolts straight out, that would have made it easy. But no, the firewall's not only with no right thrust, but it actually had a little bit of up thrust in it. So I was going to have to bend these screws, and it was going to be a nightmare. So scratch the first attempt. My next idea was to make a motor box like the previous owner had done for that Power 15 motor. Where's that? Here it is. So this was the one the previous owner had done. I'm thinking, well, all right, fine. I'll just make another one of those with some 1/4-inch ply that fits this gearbox. And so I made the back plate, I made the front plate, and I was figuring out what the side plates needed to do. And then again, because there's just so little room on the sides here, I quickly figured out that I was going to spend forever cutting and fitting and doing all that. So eventually I went back to my original plan, which was to carve out slots on the sides here and just put some hardwood beams in there, and then use a clamshell motor mount, probably easier to see on the bottom, clamshell mount that holds the motor in. So that's what's going on there. And originally, when I had that installed, you really got to cinch down on that thing to hold it. And this is a 13-inch prop on here, a lot of torque. Not only was it twisting a little bit, it was the motor was trying to pull out of the mount. So what I did to correct that, I have some, where are they? Some heat sinks. There we go, some heat sinks for another project. And these heat sinks came with a heat conductive glue. And I'm like, maybe that'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It'll help the heat sink of the clamshell mount work a little better and maybe hold that motor in place. So I spread some of this around on the clamshell before I put the motor in, and knocking on wood, that's been holding it so far. So I think I'm good to go with the motor. To round out the power system, again, right now I have a 13.6 propeller on here, and I'm using a 3-cell 2200 milliamp hour battery, which is smaller than what the previous guy was using, but that's because I put it in a different place. I used this hatch here. Where is it? So the motor goes right up in here, and I put some Velcro on the side to hold
the battery goes in there. You said motor.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the battery goes right in there, and with the 2200 there, it balances right on where it says the CG should be there. And the power system is pulling, I have the numbers here, 25 amps, making like 250 watts, which this is a 4-pound airplane, right at 4 pounds, ready to fly. So you guys know I like numbers. So doing the math on that, that's 69 watts per pound. No jokes. Which is typically I aim for 100 watts per pound on a sport plane, but this is supposed to be a slow flying old timer type thing. So I was confident that it would fly fine at 69 watts per pound. And spoiler alert, it does. There's still some headroom, lots of headroom in the motor. I think it's good for up to 600 watts. Using a 30 amp speed control, so I might need to upsize that if I want to either go to a bigger prop or do something else. But I think it's fine the way it is. I doubt I mess with it. So to summarize here, I put the beams in to hold the clamshell with a little bit of down thrust, a little bit of right thrust. So it's set the way I want it. Bear with me here. I have a hot message coming in. Oh, no, spam. So that's the motor. The other thing, that windscreen. I used the template that I got from the plans. Here it is. As a starting point. And I've got some clear polycarbonate that I use for windscreens on lots of things. Cut it out, had to do a lot of trimming and shaving and final fitting, blah, blah, blah. And after a while, I finally got it the way I like it. And it looked pretty good, but with the white windows on the side and the clear windscreen, I'm like, you know what? Lee was wrong on this one. It's got to be white. Yeah, sorry. You said you
Wait,
wanted it clear, right?
no, I said no. I said white would be best because you talked about making the side windows clear. I said no, don't do that. I was supporting the white.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood you then.
But I mentioned if you went clear, you should put our faces. It's like-
Maybe that's what I'm confused on. So I have polycarbonate paint for RC car bodies, and this is Lexan. So what I did is I brushed on the first coat because regular paint won't stick to this Lexan. It'll flake off. So I did an initial coat with the polycarbonate paint, and then I just backed it with a few coats of cheap spray paint. And so far it seems to be okay, and it's opaque enough. And it's just held in with some number 2 screws on the side there. Anyway, I'm happy with how that turned out. It's solid, and I think it looks way better than the one that was on there, and it matches pretty well with the old windows. So there's that. And one of my favorite parts. Have you seen this yet?
oh, your wheels.
Yeah, I was able to fit some Trexler balloon wheels on here.
Those look much better.
Yeah, I think they just kind of fit the style of this airplane better. And I was really lucky that I told you the axles were oversized for those antique style wheels that were on there. So thankfully, nobody that owned this airplane previously shortened them to accommodate that, because the Trexlers really require a long axle. And these were just the perfect size. You'll notice that the wheel collars are at the outside of the wheel, and that's exactly what I needed. So I blew these up. And for those who aren't familiar with the Trexler wheels, they have kind of a nozzle that's molded into them. And the natural thing to want to do is blow into that nozzle with your mouth to inflate the tires. But don't do that. Any moisture that you put in here now is going to make these things dry rot very prematurely. So I don't have it here anymore because I took it to the field with me this morning. I used one of those sports inflators that you would use to inflate like a football. I use that to inflate these so it doesn't get moisture in it. Anyway, so I think these are a good size. I think they're the right style. The hubs are wood, and out of the box, they're just natural wood. So I just use a little craft paint to paint it white to go with the overall color scheme. I tested the servos. The servos were fine, so nothing to do there. So I think the only thing left, other than to put a receiver in here, this is a Futaba receiver, and I use my Futaba 14 SG transmitter, but just a 3-channel airplane, no fancy mixing or anything. That was it. I did most of this work yesterday, and some of the covering work was still yet to be done, but the weather this morning was so beautiful. I'm like, I just need to take this thing out while it's a sunny, windless day and see if it flies well. So that's what I did. First thing this morning, I charged up 3 of those 3-cell 2200s. I went to my field, and I put in some flights on this baby. So you have any questions for me?
Tell me more.
Okay.
No, I mean, right now I'm just admiring the work that you did, and it seems like you covered everything you talked about.
Yeah. So I did a very minimal setup on the radio. I didn't do any dual rates. I just had it at 100% on rudder and elevator, no expo. And I figured it's not going to need much. So I put the airplane on the runway, gave it some throttle, and it took off. And it was apparent in the first 3 seconds of being airborne that I had too much rudder throw. So the thing was kind of almost like Dutch rolling all over the place. I got it settled down pretty quickly, but I brought it in for a landing and spent a couple minutes not only reducing the throws, but adding some expo. So I think I'm at 70% travel now with 35% expo, and it tamed it down a lot. And the elevator was fine from the beginning. So I took it back off and I flew around, and it flies like you would expect it to. It's not fast, but it climbs at a pretty steep rate, maybe 30 degrees at full power. The belt drive sounds nice. It sounds like a lot of gear drives, but it has a nice whine to it, and the prop bites the air nicely. And
how was your thrust angle?
I think that's pretty good because if anything, it could use a little bit more down thrust because it does climb under power. And then when you back off the power, it noses down a little bit. But to me, it's not big enough issue to go chasing it down for the perfect angle.
How difficult would it be to fix that?
It would take, I don't know, just some time at the field, changing the thrust angle with washers. So you add washers behind the back 2 screws to tilt it down more. Then you take it up and you see if the pitch changes with throttle changes. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like a big deal to me, so I'm not really interested in investing much time in doing that. The right thrust, I think it's pretty close, but it does an interesting thing that I noticed. When you first start powering up for a takeoff, it actually pulls left, like you would expect. Or no, I take that back. It pulls a little bit to the right, and you have to give it left rudder. And then at some point while it's rolling on the mains, it transitions, and it starts pulling left, and you have to give it right rudder. Once I figured out what was going on, it's subtle movements each way, but I've never had a plane do that before, I don't think. It either needed one direction or the other for takeoff. Usually you have to give it right rudder.
Mm-hmm. That's not landing gear related?
It could be. Maybe it's because it's on these big bouncy wheels, or maybe
could you have the right wheel lagging or something, causing it to want to pull right?
They both, I'm going to check that right now. No, they both roll pretty freely. It could be something other than the thrust angle. I don't know, but kind of like the
could the gear have a different angle? Could you have a cattywampus axle?
I know that they're not straight, but also I wonder with these big balloony tires how much that matters and how much.
Good point.
Skidding. But yeah, I don't really know. But yeah, I'm not terribly concerned about it. It was just an interesting thing that I noticed.
I mean, how would you feel about hand tossing it?
I guess it would.
I mean, if you hand toss it, you could rule out the landing gear and just get a feel of if someone threw it straight, if it was still banking right before you got more power to it.
Well, maybe, but I think when I have to give it left rudder is before it's reached flying speed. So
Gotcha.
The hand launch would immediately go past that threshold. So yeah, again, just an observation, not necessarily something that needs to be fixed. But I put in, several flights, but I went through all 3 batteries today. Sometimes just tooling around at low altitude, doing touch and goes. Other times doing maximum performance climbs and then shutting the motor off and seeing how long I could glide around. Just having fun with it and experimenting. There was almost 0 wind the entire time. So I'll have to try it again when there is some wind. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit tougher to fly in those conditions, but it was super comfortable and easy to fly in the calm conditions today. So I had fun with it. Interesting thing that I noticed today, somebody mowed our field recently, so thank you for that. And because I went out first thing in the morning, it was still wet. So I'll have to put up some pictures. I wiped it down. But this airplane was just covered with wet cut grass. These big Trexler wheels, they just fling it. I think I need mud flaps on this thing. It was just flinging this like a rooster tail.
That'd be kind of cool. Put little wheel covers.
Yeah.
But just like on the top, not like wheel pants, but just like little.
Yeah. So anyway, I was wiping off grass between every flight. One more thing I forgot to point out. It had, I think unintentionally, an air inlet here on the firewall where they cut out a hole for the motor wires to go through. I enlarged that hole. I used like a keyhole saw to open that up to, I don't know, an inch or something just to make it a little cleaner. You can't see it because the firewall is black, but trust me, there's a hole in there. But there was no outlet. And all the bulkheads from the wing saddle back are solid. Normally I would put an exit hole in the back, but if I did that, I'd somehow have to figure out how to drill a hole through every former to get there as well. So what I did was, there's another door back here that I think was originally where the battery went through, but I'm not using it. Anyway, I cut a slightly larger hole here and then added some screen that I had. So that's my air exit, and hopefully the screen keeps wet grass and bugs and other stuff from getting in there. So anyway, I was happy with how that turned out.
Congrats.
Thank you. I think that summarizes it. It went from an airplane that needed only a tiny bit of work and some cosmetic things to this. Oh, Right. So I flew it this morning, having not done a lot of the cosmetic stuff, which is mostly covering repairs, a few patches and things like that. So I did that after I got home this afternoon. And to be honest, the airplane looked better before I fixed the patches. Other than the patch that I added here over where I assume the needle valve came out, and maybe back here, there was a patch there that didn't look great that I think is better now, but you can still tell it's patched. So the issue I ran into was I knew I had some purple covering. I thought it was this color purple. It turns out it's another brand. It's a darker purple, so I didn't have a match for this. So what I ended up doing was scavenging some material from the airplane. I like to have stripes on the bottom of the wing so I know right and left when I'm flying. And so I pulled a square here of the purple and added a white stripe. And so then I had this much purple to work with for patching the holes. The problem I ran into is apparently this covering is really old. It's become brittle and it doesn't really shrink much anymore. So I could stick it to places. The adhesive was okay, but it wasn't shrinking correctly, and it just didn't work out well. So for example, right here on the wing, there was already a patch here, but it was a different color covering. So, another interesting thing, because I pulled this covering from the bottom, it's darker a little bit than this. I assume this is faded a little bit in the sun over the years. So it's a different color, and I could not make it stick to these things and shrink well. So what am I going to do about it? I don't know, probably nothing. If I ever find the right color covering, maybe I'll get ambitious and fix that. I'll probably just say it's good enough. I'm going to enjoy flying it.
I think this is where an RC Roundtable sticker should go.
Well, that's not a bad idea, but it would probably be wrinkled too.
We could take off that piece, that terribly wrinkled piece. I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, you basically, you paid for it, right? You didn't just someone didn't give it to you. You got it at a swap meet or something?
This was a gift.
Oh.
It was originally arranged as a purchase. And the guy said, you know what? I know you're into these things. You're going to do good things with it, so you can just have it.
And you did.
That's really cool. Thank you. So, yeah. And I wonder if I would have been as compelled to work on it right away had I actually paid for it. So, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I really appreciate it. It was a great gift and a great looking airplane before I got it. And so to say for the 100th time, it only needed a few very minor things. And so that's all I did to it. This was kind of a beginner level restoration. Just figuring out how to add a power system and make it balance and clean up a few cosmetic idiosyncrasies. That's it.
3D print some snow skis and you're good to go.
I've got snow skis, buddy. So
or 3D print some. I'm just saying, you can 3D print.
One thing we talked about before, there was a third rubber band post kind of coming out here like a unicorn horn.
Yeah, you took it off.
I sawed that baby off. I figured I didn't need it. And if today's an indicator, I don't need it. So there she is, the renewed Buzzard Bombshell in all her purple glory. So I'm looking forward to locking plenty more flights on her. All right. Oh, is that your golf clap?
My golf clap. Good job.
All right. Thank you. So, thank you, Dave. Again, it's a great airplane, and I'm glad to have it and fly it and show it off. So, yeah, pretty cool. And so the next question I have for you, Lee, is what are you going to rescue?
There's some planes I want to smash with a hammer right now, but I'll figure something and I'll get back to you.
Okay. So for those of you watching, if you have questions about this, put them in the comments or send us an email at contact@rcroundtable.com. I'll do my best to answer it. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you guys like what we're doing here to show some of the techniques of how we fix stuff up. If you have thoughts about what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong, we can take it. Just tell us. Anything else you want to add, Lee?
Nope. Nice
Okay.
one.
All right, thank you. And so we're going to do another one of these again. I'm going to try to maybe do a car one next. Not that we necessarily have to rotate all these, but I've got a car restoration that's waiting in the wings. So get ready for that one. But in the meantime, I'm going to log some more flights on this baby and have lots of fun with it. So thanks for watching RC Rescue, episode 2. What are you laughing at?
No, this is the energy level. Boost it up, buddy. Thanks for watching another episode of RC Rescue.
Thank you for
How's
watching.
that? Yeah.
You can be our pitch man.
All right. Next one. All right. Good jobs.
All right.
Till next time.
Okay. Bye. Please visit our website at rcroundtable.com. That's where you will find all of our podcast episodes. You can also find a little bit of background information about the show host and leave comments and suggestions about the show. There are links to a few of our favorite vendors and also links to our various social media accounts. Thank you for watching and listening.